Hey everyone. Okay, we're live right now. Yeah. Hi
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in our Hacktoberfest event. I am Aditya Obrai, the General Secretary of Developer Student Club Amity. And today we have with us for our first session of the day, Simran Makhija. Simran
Hey
is an
everyone.
accomplished web developer. She has experience in all three major front-end frameworks. She has experience as a full stack developer. She's also a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, Girl Script Indore City Lead, and the winner of the first ever Microsoft VS Code Hackathon. Hey Simran, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
All right, I think should we
Um,
wait a couple of minutes maybe till some more folks join in?
sure, if that's what it's absolutely
Okay.
fine. I am. Well, let's all not focus on what's written in the messages you all received or in the description somewhere. They're saying accomplished Microsoft student ambassador or accomplished web developer. There is nothing as accomplished for a third year student in college. Let's just keep it at that.
Oh,
We're just navigating. I've been doing the web development thing for like 2 years now. So I know what I'm doing and I know where to take code from and where to put it. So while we're
that gives
waiting,
us a lot of hope considering I have started what maybe a couple of weeks ago. So as someone who just started with web, that gives me a lot of hope because I have a huge trouble with HTML, CSS.
most of it you'll be picking up from somewhere and putting somewhere else. It's not, uh, most of the time, it's
Yes.
not what you write. So that's fine.
Mhm.
And as for the
Sounds
student
good.
ambassador thing, well, I've been in the program for 1 year, like a lot of the other people in the program. So we'll just let the VS Code Hackathon winner thing be the only legitimate thing you guys have heard today. Hi, Ayushi. Hey, man. Ooh, I think I've seen Ayushi before. I think it was at our HackCon discussion.
Yeah, Ayushi was there in our Hackon discussion.
Mhm.
It's always good to see people come back from the community. It's always a lot of fun.
Definitely is.
Yes. Hey, man.
So, how's
Thanks a lot for
everyone
joining
doing
in.
today? Your DSC has
Yeah,
asked you to wake up early in the morning and join a session. I mean,
sorry.
props to you guys for coming in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not, there's no classes today and you're up at 11 for an event. That's awesome. We'd also love to hear about what you've been working on, what you're excited about, why you're interested in the event. So just stay active in the live chat. Keep sharing, keep talking, keep chatting, asking questions. That would be awesome. So I
Definitely.
think we can begin now, maybe. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Hey, one more
All right.
person in the chat. Yeah.
All right. Then I'll let
So,
you do it. Yeah.
sure. Uh, I don't need the screen share for the moment. Maybe. Well, yeah. So, hey everyone, I can see myself on screen. It's a little daunting. So, what it is and how you can get started with it. So, I'll probably let you all know a little bit about how I started with it and how it's not such a big deal for me to be having done third year. You may be in your second year and you've just started out. You're planning to start out, and you're like, man, others have a kickstart. We don't. So what happened with me at the end of my first semester, I had a college again similar to this, but it was a physical one,
Simran,
9 a.m. in the
hi.
morning,
Your voice seems to be
and
lagging slightly.
it just said, yeah, is that an
Your
issue?
voice is cracking. It's lagging. Yeah.
Oh, I have my internet to
I think
blame
it's
for that.
better
I mean,
now. I think it's
my apologies for that.
yeah, that happened. I think it's better now, but I just like to tell the audience, please do bear with us if it does happen in the middle, occasionally, and just let us know in the chat. Thanks a lot for mentioning that, Hemant. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll take a pause and then repeat whatever I was saying. So,
yeah. Just quickly let us know in the chat whenever that happens.
so as I was saying, one nice Saturday morning like this one, y'all at your home. We were supposed to go to college 9 a.m., 10 a.m. There's a workshop, and it had been marketed as something where we would learn a skill that has industry level value. And now we're all first semester students. We didn't know what was happening, and they were charging for it. It was 20 rupees per person. So if you paid the money, you've got to turn up, right? So, me and a good friend of mine, we turned up, we're sitting there with our old laptops. We didn't have new laptops yet. It was like mid first semester. We were just deciding on laptops, things that barely work are old laptops after you get into computer science usually. So, we got in, we're sitting there, and they start off telling us we're gonna build a website today in 2 hours. We're like, damn, we've been using them for so long. We haven't built any yet. I hadn't anyway. A friend of mine who I was with had done a little bit of HTML and CSS in school. Again, a lot of you might think somebody's done CS in 11th and 12th or in school and they might be like, really good at it. That's usually not the case. It's just everybody has a different point of starting and it's up to you where you take it. So we went there, we enjoyed the workshop. We left a little early because it was getting too long, and the workshop was all about building a basic web application. And because they had like 3 to 4 hours at hand, they explained everything in detail and everything, and it seemed very intriguing. And that wasn't it. To give those people some credit, the money that they'd taken from us, they'd given us snacks worth the same and everything, and they'd taken feedback from us on these small chits and told us that we were supposed to stay in touch, do an assignment, and give it back to them. So we'd get more work. We'd probably get into a college club start of the year, and that was my incentive for starting off. I went on W3 schools. Me and my friends searched Udemy, and I don't know if this is allowed here, but we downloaded a Udemy course from somewhere, and we started going into that. So we had no prior coding experience, both of us. We didn't know what to do, and JavaScript seemed really easy. HTML seemed understandable, so that's where we went. Right. Semester one, two, that's all we did. And then in the middle of the second semester, somebody told us we should dabble into Angular for the kind of application we were supposed to make. So we went into Angular, worked around there a bit. Now, why I'm telling you all of this is all of my first year encapsulated in the last, I don't know how long I've been talking for, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And what this facilitated me in doing was have an internship of 6 weeks after my second semester. I knew nothing else, just some Angular, some HTML and CSS, and I'd made some basic learning projects with it. So and that internship was where it was mostly us working on features for the main project that the company was developing. So we were just testing out um, the features and doing research for them and finding out what the best way to do things was. We learned a lot about how production level code works during that internship. We weren't paid, but we worked 6 weeks, had a great network, and have an internship to show after our very second semester. So um, that was how just learning web development. To this date, I've done 3 internships. Two of them have been just because I know how to develop for the web, and all my CS background is completely uh, well, it is something that helps me, but mostly this is a skill that puts you right there in the middle of smack dab everything and makes you sellable in the market. So this is why I believe everybody should give web dev a shot. Give it a shot and know in your mind, in your heart, or whatever you believe in, that if you give this a shot and if you like it, you won't be wasting your time. There's a lot of scope out there. So that's a little bit about why I think everybody should go into web development. Just give it a shot, not go into, because सारे web developers बन जाएंगे तो बाकी tech कहाँ रहेगा, right? Just if you're in your first year or in your second year, the best time is now. Explore as much tech as you can. Explore the web, explore ML, explore blockchain, explore cloud, explore whatever. Explore theoretical computer science, if you will. That might lead you into some great research work. That's the same for ML and AI actually. So do a lot of exploration and find what you like. I like creating things, and web dev makes me helps me create stuff really quickly. Just and we're done. So most of our conversation today is going to be like this because I had surprise mid-sem exams last week. I don't have a presentation for you guys, and I thought maybe if I was talking, I'd have more attention than showing you something to read, right? So it's gonna be this and a little bit of hands-on. We're just gonna talk about what the web is and everything, and so yeah, why you should go into web dev according to me? Explain. Next, what is web development? So, as we said, we need engagement from the crowd. So, leave a comment about what you think web development is. And let's see what your host thinks web development is. If um,
Hey, I think that's a very good question. I mean, if I have to talk about what web is to me, web is something I was totally not interested in one until 1 month ago. And now when I talk about my upskilling, that's the only thing I'm focusing on for the time being. Because that's the sort of impact the web has. I mean, if you think about it, anything you're doing right now, be it
but
chatting with
meanwhile,
friends,
please
chilling.
leave your comments about what you think it
Yeah,
is.
we had a question come in just a little bit back, and it's a nice question, but we'll get into that little bit in a short while.
I will answer this question because I've done a lot of
Yes.
Googling on it, and you can do a lot of Googling on it. It's a great question. Read Medium
Yeah.
articles and all of that. I'll answer that question in due time.
Yes. So, I
So,
mean, if we talk about the web, anything and everything we're working on, if we're chilling, if we're watching movies, videos, chatting with friends, surfing social media, it's all on the web, isn't it?
um, that it is. And from what I've heard, Amity uses Teams for their classes, right?
Yeah,
And a lot of you might have Teams downloaded and not using it on the web. What you have downloaded is
a wrapper
basically still
for
on the web.
it's a
It's
wrapper
still
for
in
the web version.
JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, gone are the days where you say if you know web development, you can only develop a website. You're basically developing for everything these
You can
days.
develop anything. If you take JavaScript, you can now make native apps as well
Aditya,
for
though I'm
mobiles,
gonna, for the
laptops.
benefit of the audience, I guess, I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask you why, after say 5 semesters of your computer science journey, have you decided to delve into web development now? Considering the path that you're taking, a lot of people will see it as something that leads more into a management role, product management, or something like that. Anybody that's ever stalked you on LinkedIn would know this. So, why did you consider taking this up?
Okay, so even if I talk about product, yes, product management is something I want to move into, but I want to start with the developer relations ecosystem first. That is what has really been attracting me. And what I've realized is that when you talk about DevRel for any company, when you're talking about evangelism or advocacy, most organizations which require roles for such require you to have development experience. And in more often than not, in most cases, that's going to be web development experience, simply because the web ecosystem is a lot more versatile and larger than just the native app ecosystem, if you think about it. Because
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's working with web technologies can now develop for native, can develop native apps as well, as I had mentioned earlier. You talk about desktop apps, you have Electron for that. You talk about mobile apps, you've got React Native. You can develop apps for smartwatches with JavaScript if I'm talking about it. So, I mean,
Yes, that is
that's
a
the kind of
possibility.
versatility web technologies have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
as far as it comes to starting late, there's nothing known as a late start. I know I have
no,
friends,
I'm
we've got
just,
Simran.
I have a,
Yeah,
it was out of,
no, this one is something that I like to tell anyone in the audience. Now, I know people who started in their first years, and then there are folks here who think, they're in third year, they're fourth year. What's the point of starting now? There's nothing like a late, there's nothing known as a late start. You start in your own good time, and
definitely.
that's when you go ahead with it.
I mean, we had two wonderful answers, and I like that it was more qualitative than a textbook definition. Like Ayushi said, web development for her is implementing her creativity and turning it into an online platform. And Raghav said it is taking your things online and showing them to people. Now, I'll just
Yeah,
add a little to both of those things. Yes, it's your creativity, and yes, it is you taking to an online platform and spreading it among a lot of people. But hi, Nirupama with the J. And but also, it is you building something that millions could be potentially using somewhere down the
exactly.
line, and that is amazing. So yeah, that I think we've answered the question what web development is and what it means, the scope. We've seen it from a DevRel's perspective as well, thanks to your host today. So let's move forward and let's talk about what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are. That's going to be my core focus for the day. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because those are your building blocks towards developing using Angular or React or Vue or maybe the next cool framework that comes in. Right, frameworks are gonna keep
Yeah.
changing, but your basics remain. So just a just a small little something that I would like to show you guys.
Should I put your stream up now?
Yeah, sure. This is something I'd built a few days ago, and a lot of you would think that with something this simple, it ought to be made in just HTML, right? I click here, I go on the about here and here. Now, what some of you might find surprising is here there's a lot of HTML and CSS and JS involved. While you can see the CSS in this part, even this part here, just the plain text, has quite a lot of CSS involved. So I'm just going to show to you what it looks like when something has just HTML and just and then adding CSS to it. Just give me a second here. This is Sublime Text, if anybody is wondering. It's a nice little editor for simple use. You can use this as well as VS Code, I'd say, for any kind of development work. VS Code is more comprehensive. Will help you in the second session today as well if you're working with Git and everything. Oh, sorry. Oh, as some of you can see, what I'd shown you and these two look very different. So what this is the basic HTML of that site that we'd just seen. Now you can most of you can just see this as the skeleton of the site, right? You can still say that this is the heading and this is a link that leads somewhere and this is some other link, but it's just very raw, something like it's just what is on the website without seeing how it should look and how it should work, just plain text. This is what HTML is. If we talk in terms of a person or a body, HTML is you it's the skeleton, you know. It's just how things should be structured. Now if I add CSS to this, that is if I do this and I refresh, you'll notice a drastic difference. Oh, what has CSS done for me? CSS has beautified it. So basically, if HTML was the skeleton, CSS is the flesh and bones not the bones, sorry, flesh and skin of your website. It decides how your website or your web page appears to a person. That's what CSS does. Now, if we're talking in similar terms, when I will uncomment my JS scripts under down here, you won't be able to see any visible difference, only behavioral difference. So, what JavaScript does for you guys is, for any of us for that matter, what JavaScript does is it provides the motor functionality. Like you have the skeleton, you've got the bones, right? You have the joints in the right place, you have bones, you put up the skin and the flesh and the clothes probably, and you know how you look, but you don't know how to move. The motor functionality is what JavaScript is. It gives you the behavioral and the movement part of your website body. If we were talking about this in a sentence structure form of things, it would most likely be more like um, HTML is the noun. HTML is the answer to your question, that is what. What do you want to put on your screen, on your web page? That's your HTML. I want a paragraph, I want a heading, I want a link, I want an image. That's HTML. Now, how do you want that to look? So, what describes a noun? An adjective. The adjective is your HTML. How you want things to look is your CSS. How you want things to look, how you want them to appear to people. What kind of colors do you want? Do I want this text to be underlined, or do I want to change it on hovering? Wait, no, that's something that JavaScript will do. Or do I want it do I want my headings to be this big in this particular font? Do I want this card like structure with this font size here and this image size here? All of this is styling. That's CSS. And then JavaScript is the verbs, the action words of your website, so to speak, of this complete sentence. We know what to put there, we know how it should look. What's left for us now is how it should work. What should you do when you click on something and it should take you somewhere? Like I hover here, gives me an underline. Or if I here I can't. Or if you've seen places where you click on something and it puts a strike through in, that's what we'll be doing ultimately. So all of that is JavaScript. JavaScript tells your code what to do, tells your website what to do when an event occurs. It's all the logic and the mind behind all of this. So JavaScript does not give you visible changes, it gives you behavioral changes. I hope it's not too heavy for anyone here. Please feel free to interrupt me or oh yeah. So should we get started, or are there any questions up to this point of things? I just be any questions? That's definitely true. I think this one here that says frameworks like Angular, React, Node, and TensorFlow. Well, TensorFlow is a library, and so is React, I believe. But these things have made web development or the JavaScript ecosystem all in all a lot more than it was a couple of years ago. That's definitely true. That's some good motivation to start developing for the web here. You well, anybody that needs to deploy their machine learning models or has, if you need a face for anything, you'll need to develop an application. An application, a web application, a mobile application is what lets your users interact with your code. It's definitely some good motivation. And yeah, any questions so far? Oh, Sayan, what's your question about React.js? React.js is a library that facilitates developing for the web, progressive web applications in particular. So, let's all dive into maybe writing some code. And because I want you all to, and because I want you all to, follow along, I have an empty folder here. I would definitely, it'd be absolutely perfectly all right, even encouraged if you all could just open up an empty folder and create a new file. And let's just save this as index.html. So we're going to be creating a basic to-do list here, right? Now, when there's an HTML web page, as a lot of you might be able to see here, it says Progate plus reviews. Now, not everything says Progate plus reviews, right? Here it says add basic HTML to your web apps. This says StreamYard. StreamYard even has a little logo and Microsoft logo here. So, how do you make this possible, right? There's something telling your browser to put Progate plus reviews written over here. That's all the metadata for your um, application. So what I will do here is, if you're using VS Code, you guys can do this as well. You write HTML colon 5 and press tab. Well, 5 and press tab. This gives you the basic skeleton or boilerplate of your HTML application directly. And if you're using something like Sublime, you can just do HTML and tab. Oh, oh, yeah. Mm, okay. I think that okay, yeah, that's the reason here is that I haven't saved this file as something. So I'm just gonna do it x.html for now, and I do HTML and tab. This is going to be the boilerplate here. Any editor you're using will have something like this. If not, you might have to write your own boilerplate. What it does is it tells this boilerplate the first line you see is a tag that specifies the document type. What the document type is that this tells your browser, upon being opened in the browser, that this is a file type of HTML. So this basic tag is something that you do everywhere in your HTML type, um, HTML files. And moving forward, we have the HTML tag, which is basically the wrapper tag for everything that goes on there. Everything inside this tags is understood as HTML. The language attribute here is always optional. Here we've given lang equals to en, which specifies the language of this web page is English. This is all browser metadata. This is something that tells browser things or maybe users if they look further. I've just indented the lines below that, the lines below here, to a next tab space just to show that this all the all things inside the HTML opening and closing brackets or tags is nested inside it. As you can see, inside the head tag, everything is indented one point inside. Now, this does nothing for your browser or for your compiler or anything. This is just to increase the readability of code, right? So, here we have the head tag, which is mostly, this is again a lot of starting metadata for your browser, in the sense that this meta tag, because it's called meta, it's giving the metadata of what character set encoding to use. A lot of different character set encodings are used, but by default, even if you do not mention this, most browsers consider it to be UTF-8. So here you can see this little thing called document. I'm gonna let it remain that way for a bit here and come into the body. Inside this body is where you'll be writing most of your code. Unless you want to link something up with your HTML or add some kind of extra information that the browser should know to be able to build this up, you put it all in the body. Whatever you want viewed is put in the body. Like I'll put hi and not much else. Let's see how that goes. So I think this, yeah. As you all can see, you can see document written over here, and the hi appears here just in plain text because it's inside the body. So it's just that, and it says document. Now we all saw that document was something that was written here in the title tag. So this title tag basically is what tells your browser what to put up there on the tag, on the tab title, what the tab should be called. So here we're just gonna call it to do list. As many of you can see, hi is just simple text here, right? It doesn't look anything like this or this for that matter. What are these? These are headings. And here hi is just plain text. You can definitely put only plain text. Okay, for just gearing back a little, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What a markup language essentially is something that tells this isn't a programming language. You'll see a lot of memes online on this. HTML is not a programming language. It is a markup language. It just gives you the markup of things that should be visible. It's not coding per se, right? So there we go. Now we might want to add a heading here, just to show what this is about, what we're doing here. So it probably say H. Oh, now if we do H1, as you can see, there are 6 H tags here. I might as well show you all of them. So H1 stands for the heading 1, that is your main heading. There might be to-do list, right? That's what we're building today. And if any of you feel that I'm going very fast or something that you can't follow along, please let me know. Or just post that in the comments and Aditya can let me know and I'll slow down. So I have autosave turned on in my VS Code. If you don't, you'll have to control S and save every time you make a change and then reload. You see this to-do list written here. This is an H1. Now you might be wondering, this is a heading. What's H2, H3, H4, right? Because one heading and another heading, there may be styles of headings. Maybe it may look like this later. It won't. These are all H3s as far as I remember. But they're styled to have that kind of a font size and a font family. So similarly, we go with H2, H2, and we write to do today. A subheading beneath the H1. So one, 2, 3, 4, 5. What they signify is your heading type, nested headings, a subheading to your first heading. So the importance of your headings goes down, the size, the bold, the emphasis goes down as you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So under to-do list, I might want to do put to do today. Under that, I might want to put to do this morning. Maybe under that, I'd put 10 a.m. Right, like something like this. To do in the morning. Oh, sorry. To do morning. You don't need to follow along to these. I'm just illustrating. If you do, it'd be great. 10 a.m. And then even below this, I might want to nest things as, say, important stuff first, right? So after saving, I reload here, and you can see these decreasing in size. So this is heading 1 that tells you what this, then this is a subsection of a subsection of a subsection. That is your heading tag. Now I'm gonna remove all these extra heading tags and let's all just stick to the to-do list tag. That's our main heading. Now when you have a list, you'll obviously want to put it as maybe bullet points or a numbered list, right? Before I move further into all of this, I would like to clearly state that there may be a number of tags that I don't cover today. All of HTML is written within tags. You inserting an image tag, inserting a Spotify widget an iframe tag. You want to insert a video, you have a different tag. You need to insert some presentations from say Google Drive, you have different tags. So all of that can be easily understood by googling, and towards the end of all of this I will have a short period of time where all of you can ask me what you want, what kind of a tag maybe you would want to see used here, right? And I'll show you guys how to google that. So starting off, now we're going to go into the main body. So as I was saying, when we're making a list like a to-do list, you would want a numbered list or maybe a bullet point list there, right? So starting with that, I'm gonna show you the two kind of lists that HTML provides, an OL and a UL. Okay, what I'm doing here, as you can see, I just write OL and the tags appear. I'm just writing OL and pressing tab, and VS Code is giving me the opening and closing tags for the same. So what an OL will do is give me an ordered list, that is a numbered list with 1, 2, 3, 4. And what a UL will do will give me is what a UL will do is give me a list with bullet points, right? So inside the OL and a UL, if you write something like this and like this and Control S and reload, you won't see anything. You'll just see indented text. You don't see the one, two, threes or the bullet points. What will help you see those is going to be a different tag, which is the list item tag. As OL stands for ordered list, UL stands for unordered list, LI stands for list item. Now, as I put the first list item, for me to do was to take DSC Hacktober session, and maybe a second to do for the day is to clean my desk. So these two things, as you can see, I've put them inside the opening and closing ordered list tags. I've put two list item tags. These will give me two items on the list. Let's just see how they look. Can you see? One, take DSC Hacktober session. Two, clean my desk. My desk needs a little bit of cleaning. No judging. All of us have been there every other day. And you might see, when you use an ordered list, you're kind of giving somebody an order to follow, like do this first and then do this. As you can see here, I've given one, two, three to up to 11. These are steps for contribution to this particular initiative. So similarly, I'm telling myself, first I'll take the session and then I'll clean my desk. So 1, 2, 3, an ordered list helps you like that. Mostly when you do PPTs and everything, you notice that you've done things like this, where you've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where you wanted somebody to go in a certain order. And when you're just stating points, you'd want to put bullets, normal bullets. So what you can do again is use list item tags. An li tag inside of a ul tag will give you bullets. I'm just gonna, well, copy these here and save and reload. See, so these are the two kind of lists you can create in HTML. Both very useful. Whatever suits your use case. I was going to say uses your suitcase. I'm sorry. Whatever suits your use case, you might use in this case. So I'm going to stick to the li here and maybe add another list item that says study for medicine and do assignment. So we have four different to-dos here. Now, as you can all see, we have answered the question of what's clean. And while a to-do list, a complete one, would also allow you to add to-dos and remove to-dos, here we're just talking about introductory bits. So we're just going to be writing something that lists to-dos and helps you strike them off, right? So any doubts so far, Aditya?
We did have a couple of questions come up, which we will discuss. I did want to address one thing, Dipesh. Since this is a session that is designed to get people into the world of web dev rather than just for dedicatedly experienced developers, yes, it is necessary to go through HTML, CSS as well. Um, for someone who's just starting off, it is better not to directly jump into frameworks. Otherwise, it will be difficult to understand the core essence of what you're developing once you're actually into larger projects. As far as C Sharp and .NET go, Dhruv had a good question. Are C Sharp and .NET a good way to start web development? And are they both sufficient if one wants to build a basic
They,
website? Um, from
definitely
my
yes.
experience, since I work with C Sharp and .NET, ASP.NET Core is a viable option that you can use as a backend technology. And while yes, I will recommend if you're starting off with web dev, it's better to go for JavaScript since that will give you a lot more versatility. And the syntax is slightly easier to work with as well. But yeah, you can get into web development with .NET as well.
A lot of people do. That is definitely one option. It gives you, it is domain specific. You can only work with .NET, but it's definitely a great space. So
Yeah.
I think I can move
We
forward
have
just
another
showing you
good
how bad
question
yes
here.
is.
Yeah, there was just one more question that there are places where you can get templates for code, you can get sites which have certain basic codes that you can directly implement in your websites as well. So how do you really, if you can get all these templates, how much coding do you actually need to know for web development?
Well, to be able to get templates and use them for your particular use case, you need to understand how those templates work. So, up until the point that you haven't written CSS like I'm writing right now, basic HTML or CSS or all of this, you won't be able to understand the template that you're picking out. So, while drag and drop functionalities help you, drag and drop is a completely different thing when you're using something that lets you drag and then drop it somewhere and just gives you the code for it. That's completely different. But if you're taking an HTML template or say an entire React template, even for that matter, maybe forking a repository for your use case, you will require to know the nuances of the smallest of things there to be able to utilize the template well. So while yes, I know in my day-to-day work or in anybody else's day-to-day work today, if they're into web development, they might not be writing HTML like I am right now, but it is extremely necessary for you to be able to understand how it works, to use it the right way. Sure, responsive design is something that I will give you a hint of. Considering this is for beginners, I will be sticking to telling you exactly how to go about the most basic of things, right?
Yeah.
So,
We actually do have a community session in after 4 p.m. today, where even if not all the speakers are available, we will have folks from the DSC Amity team to discuss and talk about. Outdated HTML won't bring value to anyone. Better you upgrade your skills and do session on context APIs,
all
view
right, I would
dynamically.
like to answer this question without taking offense. And that's a little difficult, to be honest, because I know how context API works and how view works and how APIs work. I mean, I don't know, you might have missed my introduction here, and I usually don't gloat, but it mentioned VS Code Hackathon winner, and I've worked extensively with the read API from Azure for that, and that is a dynamic API, I would assume. I mean, I would like to be
Yeah,
corrected.
yeah,
And if I had not known basic JavaScript, I wouldn't have been able to develop for VS Code extensions. And this application that I might be showing everybody, the ProGet Plus reviews, it's just basic HTML. And it is expected out of fresher straight out of college. Well, you're supposed to be a CS undergraduate complete by then. This is for somebody just starting out. I mean, I haven't worked with Vue as much, but I can tell you, working with React or Angular is impossible without knowing basic HTML. And
also,
I could
it's
have
it's
taken,
understandable
just
if you
give
want
me
to get
a
into
second.
frameworks. Yeah, sure.
If you guys want a session on React, Angular, or Vue, ask your DSC, and they'll be more than happy to help you and conduct sessions
Absolutely.
on the same. This is something that gives you a starter to the world, and then you can go into using these frameworks, knowing what these frameworks are doing behind the scenes. Now I don't like taking this up, but there's a session that I'd taken with somebody who's working for Microsoft presently, and it said something about ML. It said a lot of people are ML enthusiasts, but very few know how ML algorithms work. Out of 100 people that will tell you they're ML enthusiasts, 5 will know how ML
What is
algorithms work.
actually happening?
Exactly.
Even if you
So now
take
web
something
dev,
like TensorFlow, for example, there are people who use TensorFlow.js in their websites. And okay, even if I'm using an API for OCR, for example, technically my app is ML and AI enabled. That doesn't mean you know what's happening
I have
under the
no clue
hood.
what's happening. I have no clue. It's similar with things like React, Angular, and Vue. So, I mean, this is a good question to come up and for me to be able to answer it. Otherwise, the audience may feel misguided by me that I'm teaching them something outdated, which I would not like to do. I have a few internships. I've seen how things work out there, and I have a little bit of experience. I'm not going to say a lot, but if you want to go forward into web dev, in my experience, you need to know this stuff. So, well,
Simon, it's all right. That the question's all right. It's not a bad question
it's not a
because,
bad.
to be
It is
honest,
an
this is
excellent
something
question. People
that
might
comes up
feel
very
deceived.
often. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a very
definitely a good
common
question.
question that people, the moment they start, they need to jump into these frameworks like Angular, React, they need to know JS, TypeScript, all of these. But when you're starting off, it is very necessary to understand the bare bone structure that is working under the hood of every single of these websites. You need to start with vanilla HTML, JS, and all. And even if you don't want to take just our words, I can tell you a great mentor. If you're getting into web dev, if you're active, you may have heard of the name Tanay Pratap. Follow him. This is what you'll get to know. You need to understand what's happening under the hood before you start jumping into these frameworks. Until you don't get that, you're not gonna actually know what you're doing, and then you're gonna hit a point where you're trying to develop. You're just copy pasting code from one, taking it from one place to another, but you don't know what's happening.
And this is just speaking from experience. I have done that at one point and it doesn't work, guys. So that doesn't work. Just copy pasting code and trying to make it work. It doesn't. You need to know how it works. And for that question that says how much time do I have up until 12. Then there's going to be a speaker telling you about Git and GitHub soon. So I'm going to wrap it up quickly, just tell you the basics and bring it open for the Q&A. So there we go. If you guys are following along with me, please create a new file called app.css, save it as app.css, and link it to your HTML in the damn, in the head tag saying link. And because I'm using VS Code, it allows me to do this. If you want, you'll have to write the entire thing. So that's me linking my CSS here, and I'm gonna be telling you what these things here, as I said, are attributes to tags, right? So we'll be adding some attributes here. A class attribute is what helps CSS identify your HTML elements. So I'm gonna put the heading class here. Oh wait, I'm just gonna put an ID here for heading and a class for list item. Class for item. Now I'm just going to show you how you can. CSS selectors are something that help CSS identify which element to style. So if I have to style the entire body, say I take up the body tag and I write background color aquamarine and save, and I reload. So for the entirety of the body tag, it gives a background color. This is the kind of basic styling you can do. Now, as probably if there were more than h1 tags, I would need something to identify this particular h1 tag as a specific thing. So what you can give ID to only one element, while class can be given to multiple elements. A lot of elements can belong to a class, but ID, as it says, identifier is for a single HTML element. Give me just a minute while I copy this item class to all the list items. Control Z. There. So if I were to select the heading now, I would be ID selector for HTML starts with an octothorpe, as most people would say, or a hashtag as we know it. So hashtag heading. Now I want my heading to be red for no reason at all. I mean, if everybody has seen Son of a Beach, they kind of know this segment. And now for no reason at all. So my heading's brown, not red, because I chose brown. So you can give your heading some color, you can give it some text decoration, you can give it an underline, save, and reload. So that's about it. And if you were using a class selector, you would go with list item. And here, let's just give our list items a color of coral and give them some text, a line of center. Let's just see what this does, right? You see, they're colored in a color that you can barely see and they're aligned to the center. Not very friendly, but what HTML can, what CSS can help you do. So in the color, you can also add um, RBG values or hex values and just do FFF. It'll give you white, or do 000 and it'll give you black color. That's it. Now we'll be adding a little bit of, I'll add an extra class here for done for when a list item is done, and what we'll do is we'll just give it a text decoration of strike through, which is line through in CSS. This is a class that we haven't used here. We'll get to it later. So just adding basic styling, you can do a lot more. Just help yourself using Googling and everything. And since we're short on time, I'm going to be skipping the details a lot around here. So in CSS, the syntax usually is CSS selector, curly braces, the property that you want to identify, and the value for the property. This is how CSS works. Moving forward, we will be adding some JavaScript to our to-do list where we add, when we click on our list item, it strikes through. It uses this CSS class. So let's just make a new one here and save it as index.js. There we go. Now we need to link it here first. Add a script tag with the source index.js. You can name your HTML file abc.html, js file abc.js. All you have to do is use the correct names here. It can be called anything. Now to make sure it is linked, we'll be using something called console.log and JS linked. What this will do is show me on the web console that my JS has been linked. I refresh. To open your web console, Control plus Shift plus I. And here you get a console log that says JS link. So now what we want our JS to be able to do is respond to a click. In JS, you can add console.log is kind of like a printf or system.out.println, and you can add a semicolon towards the end or not. That is completely up to you. And when a lot of us hear JavaScript, we think it is something very similar to Java. The things that are common between Java and JavaScript are JavaScript was born out of Java. They have the name Java in their name, and they have the word Java in their name, and they both support object oriented programming and are programming languages. Otherwise, they're two very different things used for a couple of different purposes. So you don't need to know JavaScript to you don't need to know Java to learn JavaScript. Now, moving forward, we want to be able to select our list items. So what we do is document dot query selector all dot item. I'll explain this a little bit to you. I am declaring a variable with the keyword var of the name list items that selects my entire document, HTML document, as per the document object model, which treats all of your HTML as an object, a JavaScript object, which has various methods and attributes, right? So query selector all is one of the document methods which helps you select all the queries that match a given CSS selector. So here it's dot item. We are selecting all the items that correspond to the item class. Now I'll just show it to you. Console.log items. Sometimes use semicolon, sometimes don't. Uncomment. Syntax error. Oh, my variable isn't items here, it's list items. That's why. You can see a list of four. This is an array of four different list items, which have a lot of further attributes. So now what we are going to do is we are going to iterate over all of these and show how to what to do when any of them is clicked. So what I'll do is list item dot for each. Oh, it was here. For each is like a for loop where you do for what this is equivalent to is for with index 0 up to index list items dot length index plus plus, and I would do console dot log. I'm just gonna change this to item and array to list items console dot log item. We've all done this if you're familiar with programming. What it does is takes a list or an array and it iterates over these values. It doesn't need an array. Every array has a length attribute wherein you can find the number of elements in that array. So the index is a variable that I declare inside this loop, which helps me iterate index number of times, starting from the value when the index is 0 to when the index is 1 less than the length of my list. I will be able to iterate over it, and what it will do is it will log four different items instead of logging just the list. So that is the difference here. And now what this equates to in JavaScript is the for each method. What this will take in as an argument is a function. So for the function, I will put item, that is each element of my array will be addressed by the variable name item, and there is some function that I want to perform on it. JavaScript allows arrow functions, wherein you put an equal to and a greater than sign, and it creates an which resembles an arrow, and then you provide your function body. Similarly, I could have written over here using the function keyword, name of the function, and the parameters. So if I do not want to name my function here, I can simply put in item. Yes, there we go. So in here, we would again, because we're comparing between the two, we'll just log what the items are. I will comment this code out.
Hi, Simran. Simran, since we're reaching concluding time, I think it'd be cool if we could move through this side a little quicker. What I
Sure.
could I think what I'd like to let everyone know is that yes, since we are also at time for the next session, we have a separate dedicated mentorship channel in our Discord, and Simran is present in our Discord server. So, for any doubts, any queries, you can message her there as well, so that you can all have your doubts clarified. And we've created separate voice channels just for mentorship for any doubts, queries. So you can just message in the group, and based on the availability, Simran will take queries there as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving forward, since we've been little quick in our speed, we're just gonna
Hey,
move
Akansh.
forward to how. Is there something I should be looking at? Our next speakers in the chat, everyone.
Yes, we have Ikanch here in the chat. Ikanch
Uh,
will be our next speaker. As soon as this session ends, I'll share the link for that as well here in the chat.
we're just doing things really quickly now, and I have some. Oh, this. Yeah, better. Yes. So what we're doing is on every item we're adding event listener. Event is something that happens on your website. So when an event like click happens, there is a function that we will execute. We will do item dot class list dot add. We will add to the class list of the item the class that we defined as done. Whew, this had to be quick. So yeah, the add event listener function takes two parameters, that is the event and the function to be uh, implemented, to be executed when the event occurs. So here what we've done is this bit, and when I click on this, it should make a difference. It doesn't. Control R. Now it should. Yes, it does. Yay. So yeah, we've added an event listener. What it does on clicking is every item, every HTML item as we selected here, has a class list, which is the classes that you've added here. We've added the class item here. So to that class list, you can add the class done, which I had defined here, and it just adds a line through it. So you can see clean my desk, study for midterm, do assignment. I haven't done any of that, so I'll just do this has been done for the day for me. So that's how you create a simple, quick to-do list. And in the interest of time, I'm done. Any quick questions, please throw them in. Unless you're Ekansh, then ask as many questions you want. And I'll try to
Yes,
answer them. Yeah.
absolutely.
JS
Also,
sikha do. Oh.
so we had a question on Angular versus React.
Yes. And one good question here I see is, should I practice JS before starting Angular? It will be good if you're familiar with JS because TypeScript is a superset of uh, I think we should start from the beginning. And what was the first question? It was Angular versus React,
Um,
right? So Angular is a framework while React is a library. This is a very upper level difference, something that people will tell you and won't make any sense. They're both not frameworks. If you're sitting somewhere and delivering a session like this, know beforehand one is a framework, the other is a library. So, what these two things do is, in terms of use cases, I'm going to tell you the differences because that's where you'll be using it more. When you want more autonomy over what your components do and how they work and how they're structured and how your folder structure is, you use React. Where you want to do a lot of things on your own. You want to do pretty much everything on your own. You want to have more control over your website and its structure and everything, you use React. While if you want if you're building something large scale, and if you want to follow a defined structure that Angular provides services, it provides modules, and it provides templates for components and all of that. If you want something that gives you a definitive structure, and if you want to build something large scale, Angular is the way to go. This is the shortest answer I could provide to that question. Moving forward,
Vikansh actually does have a good question. Can we use Python in the front end?
he knows the answer to that.
Yeah, but I think
There
in the
is
interest of our audience, we could actually mention that since we'll definitely have some Python developers.
definitely. Well, you can. There is a wrapper for HTML in Python that I am. That's the name which is skipping my mind. If Ekansh could help us with that, it's something with b.py, and that helps us. That helps you write HTML using Python. It's very slow, not recommended, but you can do it. Moving forward, we have. Can we move into frameworks now? Okay, that is.
We do
Thanks,
have
Shivang Dubey, for
Brighton.
answering a
We
lot
have
of
Brighton
questions
for,
here. Brighton,
yeah.
yeah, something with
Yeah,
B.
Brighton is a Python implementation for client side web development.
Yeah. Thank you for
I
answering
just shared the
also
link
many
as well.
questions there, Shivang Dubey, and thanks a ton. That helps. We had answered the C sharp question. We had answered another question that should I practice JS? Yes. You should have a good grasp of JavaScript or TypeScript before you go into Angular, because Angular works completely with TypeScript. Hi Tejasvi.
Hello.
So for anything
I'm
related to
joining
design
late.
of web
Sorry,
pages and
sorry.
stuff, you should contact your DSC lead. He's very good with that. He's an expert, someone Ekansh would call a
UI.
god at something like that. So yeah.
He's a UI UX expert. Yeah.
So TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Practicing JavaScript won't go in vain if you're moving towards TypeScript, but you should be well versed in either before you start Angular. And yes, Angular 2 plus is TypeScript based, so you do need to know TypeScript before you start to in that
Yeah.
um, towards that side of things.
All right. I think we're done
Okay,
with the
Shivang
questions for
Dubey had
now.
answered this question as well. That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks a
So I
lot.
think we're done with the questions we had. Now, if you have any further questions, we're going to be sharing a tutorial to get started with the first website as well. A tutorial which has been created by Microsoft.
Yeah,
And
that's a great tutorial.
yeah,
Hope you see it
that'll help you
online.
get started with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, after this, we have a session on Git and GitHub. The session link is up here. Please join in for this session right now. Our speaker is in our chat as well, and I will reshare the content for the link. The content, what am I saying? I'll share the link again in the session for this particular one. Just give me a second.
Thank you so much,
In this
Devika.
session, what we'll be
Thank you.
covering is the
You guys
basics
found
of
it.
Git and GitHub. So
Mhm.
that's pushing to a repo, commits, staging, all of that, the basics. And after that, we'll also discuss branching and pull requests so that you all can get your first pull requests, or if not first, your nth pull requests for this Hacktoberfest as well. So here is the link for a conscious session. It's been put up in the chat. Do join in, and it's going to be fantastic.
Definitely. Ekansh is an expert at Git and GitHub. You have
He's a
any
GitHub
doubts,
campus expert,
badger
yeah.
him with badger him with the doubts. He loves it. He loves the challenge because he does this session every other day. Challenge him as much as you guys can.
That's true.
So yeah,
This
thank
is
you.
a
Thank
good
you for
session.
joining in. Thank
I've been
you.
watching the session for a long time. Nice.
And yeah, let's move
Thanks a
into our
lot.
next session now.
Yeah.
Okay, bye bye.